Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm rebuilding the Superjet Ebox and I want to share with you guys how I do it. It's kind of daunting if you're afraid of electrical stuff, but if you just take your time, it's really not that hard. So let's get into it. Let's identify some parts. This here is your coil. You're probably most familiar with that because that goes to your spark plugs. Next to it is your voltage regulator. Over here is your CDI, which is your ignition system. This one is an MSD Ignition. Over here is your starter solenoid. This is the main component that makes your starter work. Over here is your harness for your start-stop switch harness. So this connects to the start-stop switch on the handlebars. Over here, this is the wires coming off of the engine. This is for the stator. This plug with these two wires, this is the temperature sensor. This one's been deleted because he's running an aftermarket head. And we're going to replace this plug with the OCD Solutions Tidy bilge kit. And this is a dual bilge pump harness. And there's a couple modifications we got to do to fit everything inside of this box. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Over here I have a wiring diagram which I'll share with you guys. And it's got some helpful notes and it's got some colors that really help. And I got dielectric grease, anti-seize, a big screwdriver, and a nice clean workspace. One thing I should have mentioned in the very beginning is if you're planning on running the same setup, or really if you're running an MSD at all, you should go through and just deburr and round the corners of these off. They're super sharp when they come, and your wires are going right over that edge. They're going to be pressed down real tight and rubbing on it. So anywhere the wires come through and get pressed, I have deburred and rounded this edge off really all the way around. It's not going to hurt the MSD, and it's going to protect your wires. So that's really important. Before you get too carried away with which wire goes where and what they're all for, I find it best to just make sure everything is clean all the connections, and then go through and just put dielectric grease on everything. We're going to use every wire, so just do it all ahead of time. Getting started hooking everything up, I like to just keep it simple and just start by connecting the things that I know. So easy ones are the ground ring terminals. These go on this post. Sometimes you can use this post. This one's better because it's got the little anti-rotation notch, but you can use both if needed. Just make sure they have a good clean surface to ground on. The next thing I like to hook up is the coil, because there's always this orange and black wire that goes to these two orange and black wires, usually paired together off of your CDI. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I said go ahead and plug these in, but I actually want to route them underneath these wires, so I'm going to unplug them and plug them back in underneath. The next thing we're going to do is hook up the stator. So I'm actually going to have to spin this E-box around because I can't reach it over there. I'll show you how we're going to hook those up. Super easy. Okay, your stator has two green wires. It doesn't matter which one you hook up. You got two green wires coming off of your voltage regulator. Green to green. We can go ahead and route this other ground. I'm going to stack it in with this one. Now, coming off the stator, you should have a brown-white wire with a female connector. On your CDI, you should have a brown wire with a male connector. Go ahead and hook those up. So that's brown white off the stator to brown on the CDI. And then the last one off the stator is a white red. And we're going to leave that one off just for a minute. And we're going to go ahead and jump to the start stop harness. Okay, looking at the start stop switch harness, you have a few things. You have a fuse, which brings your power in. You also have a white wire, a brown wire, and then our ground. Again, I always start by hooking up the things we know. So I'm going to hook up my ground. And then I'm also going to start by hooking up this brown wire, which goes to the brown wire coming off your starter solenoid. So you want your stator wires coming in down here, and you want your start stop switch wires coming in above them on this side. So I'm going to start by just taking this brown wire and routing it over there, kind of under things, like so, to get it where we need it to go. I'm going to take this brown wire, and I'm going to connect those. Ground off your start for your start stop and go ahead and stack that in. These ring terminals start to get pretty busy here. Now we're ready to talk about the white wires. So, from your start stop switch, you have a white wire with a male plug. On your CDI, find your two white wires and plug it in to the female one. You should have one male and one female coming off your CDI. That's how it comes from the factory. So plug in your start stop. Now the CDI has this male connector, and off of your stator, your red and white wire may plug in directly like this one, or you may have to use a jumper to get the connectors correct. It just depends on which year of stator you're using. So this one happens to work, so I don't need the jumper. But again, sometimes you need to put this jumper in between these like this. Now the stator's hooked up. My start switch harness has everything hooked up but the red. My coil's hooked up. All the grounds are basically hooked up. So now we just have the red wires left. Okay, I took a little time and I kind of bunched up all of our connections and temporarily zip tied them over here with a removable zip tie. It makes it a lot easier. I recommend doing this before you start hooking up the rest of the wires. And another thing we need to talk about is which one of these two big wires is which. According to the manual, the way they hook it up is this wire coming in should be coming from your battery and going to this side, and this big wire coming off should go to your starter. So they actually cross outside the E-box. And that is exactly how we're going to run it today. So coming off of the battery terminal side, you should have a little red wire here, and we want to hook that up to our fuse. So all the power is coming in off the battery and then goes through the fuse. If you don't fuse this, you could have a problem and fry your E-box. So fuse first. So here's our fuse. We're going to hook that up off the battery side. Your fuse goes into your start-stop switch harness. The T's in over here. Your start-stop would then plug in to your CDI. There's a red wire coming off your CDI, and it splits out and has a male and female connector. Go ahead and plug that into your start-stop there. And then take this one from the CDI and plug that into the male connector on your voltage regulator. Now you should have all your red wires hooked up, all your other wires hooked up. The only thing that's not hooked up should be this pink wire, and there's several little ground whips that are not connected. I took some time and cleaned all this up. Again, just kind of manipulated the wires and zip tied them together. Got this to where this will sit nicely here, this will sit nicely here. Everything's kind of in place. I did have to take the fused wire and route it underneath and put it, you want this basically right here, because when you put your cover on, you want that to come out through your cover. So you're gonna have to thread that through that hole when you go to put it together. So this is the general layout that a standard setup's going to be. If you're running a temp sensor, you would hook up your pink wire and your ground wire, and then you can just hook these other two ground wires together and you'd be done. And you just skip to assembly. But now I'm going to show you how to install the OCD Solutions bilge pump harness. Let's take a look at what comes in this kit. Pull that out. We got a bag of connectors, some sheathing. So this would be to go with your bilge pumps. And then here is our harness. So there's the nice grommet. So this is what's going to be outside your e-box. You're going to have your two bilge pump connectors, which is the brown and black, and then this red and brown is going to go to your bilge switch, which we are also using the OCD Solutions Surf Armor switch. So this setup is really good. If you're riding in surf, you'll never have bilge problem ever again. But inside the e-box, you're going to make a connection to your ground with a ring terminal. And then you're going to make a connection to your battery power with another ring terminal. And you got your fuse in here. So easy, we just got to make two connections and figure out how to fit all of this in there. So if you're running this kit, you've already determined you're deleting your temperature sensor. So you are going to have an empty slot here where the bilge pump harness can come through. So that's going to stack on there like that. What you're going to have to decide now is which fuse is going to come through this hole, because they're both not going to fit. I always pick the jet ski running over the bilge pumps running. So I always put the CDI fuse in that hole, and then I bury this fuse underneath my coil. Now we just have to hook up the power. So we're going to hook this up to the battery positive, and then that will be it for your bilge pumps. Okay, I actually was able to route the wires and move the fuse for the bilge pump over here, and that's going to give me more room for these wires when they're going up into the cover for the fuse box. So I recommend putting that fuse on this side, not this side. Well, let's go ahead and hook up the power for the bilge pumps. And again, make sure you're hooking this up to the battery side, the wire that goes to your battery, and not this side, because if you do this, your bilge pumps are only going to run when you're holding the starter button, and that's not what you want. So go ahead and hook them up like this. It's about like that, a little angle to it, and finish tight. Okay, so again, ground for the bilge pumps I put on that stud, route the power over here, coil up your extra wire, hook up right there. Your bilges are now hooked up inside your E-box. Okay, we've made it this far. We've got everything hooked up. We have our OCD bilge solution kit hooked up. And if you got this far and you forgot to put your gasket on, don't worry, you can put it on through the back side. You don't have to unhook anything. It's okay. You can, it's a little bit of work, but you can get it on there. I've messed it up plenty of times. But I got mine on already. And I think it's not a bad idea just to put a little bit of waterproof grease around the sealing surfaces. And maybe it makes it a little messy, but I think it just gives me a little peace of mind. I've definitely had these things leak before, and it's never fun. You get to do it all over again. You get really good at this when they leak. The grease also just kind of helps hold the gasket in place, which is convenient when you're trying to assemble this. Take your fuse and push it through like so. Try to make sure everything is laying as flat as possible as you can. And just push each grommet through its location. Like so. And it should start to line up. Now I just gently push down by hand and see, okay, is it hanging up on anything, or are there any wires sticking out? And it does feel very tight, but as long as I get the gasket lined up, I think it'll close down nicely. And at this point I just check and make sure, can I stuff this fuse all the way in there? Otherwise I'm going to have to reconfigure things if it doesn't fit. That looks like it'll fit. The final step, closing the E-box, is really important to get right. This is plastic, and it's super easy to strip out the threads in the plastic, and it's super easy to use the wrong screwdriver and mess up the screws here. See how that one's pretty wallered out? Anyway, you need your big screwdriver, the big fat tip on it. And never use like an impact. I only use this electric drill because it's got low power, and I don't use it to tighten. I just run it down and then I tighten everything by hand. And the other thing you want to use is clamps. This is going to make your life way easier, and I'll show you how I do it. Start by just making sure everything is fitting how you want by hand, and that it will in fact close up evenly with just minimal hand pressure. Make sure your gasket's lined up, that everything is where you want it. And then I take my clamp and I lightly clamp one end there and one end over here. Oops. There we go. Okay, so it's lightly clamped. I just want to make sure all the holes are lining up. It looks like I need to shift it just a little bit. There we go. Okay. I'm going to push a little more pressure on these. Perfect. Now you can just start loosely putting a few screws in. Again, I don't run those all the way down. Just get them started. You really want to make sure everything ends up straight. I am missing a few screws. I'm going to find those, but that's okay. We'll finish out anyway. So right now the clamps are still doing all the work. And I like to tighten down from the middle out. And you can see when you tighten it, the gasket will kind of squish a little. Okay, I've got most of the screws in. I'm gonna pull the clamps off. Just take a close look. Make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. It looks good. Gasket's not wrinkled or doing anything weird. Looks great. I just need to find where I put the last two screws. Close this guy up. That is a complete E-Box. All right, that's it. We refreshed that old E-Box. We put a new OCD Solutions bilge pump harness kit in there. I'm gonna upload this diagram for you so you guys have it. Easy to access, easy to remember stuff. And yeah, reference this anytime you're working on an E-Box. Hopefully it helps. I'm gonna keep building this ski out and I'm gonna keep sharing videos. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.